Hello, welcome back. My name is Lolly, and today I have my silicone mat out because we are going to play with some UV resin. So I have been thinking lately about my UV resin, and I want to zoom in here. And I had been thinking on putting UV resin on fabric, and I just never got around to it. I was still in the process of, all the crafty dreams and how I was going to do this. Well, in the meantime, I did see a video of someone doing UV resin on lace, and I thought, okay, now is the time I'm going to go ahead and play around with UV resin on something flexible. But my UV resin, which I ordered from Let's Resin, it actually says clear soft type, high flexibility. So I wasn't really familiar with using that, and I thought really that could be a good use of this soft resin would be to put it on something flexible, because then it would be flexible, especially if it's thin and you wouldn't want it to crack if it gets bent. That's actually my second project. My first one was this. Now I know this looks like lace, but it's actually not. But how fun is that? I love them both. Now you see I just went ahead and put an eyelet in here and made this one into a necklace. Let me put these aside and I will show you what those are. So a long time ago, I mean, this is one of my really old videos. I did a video about using silicone caulking in molds. And so that's what these pieces are here, and that's what I used here. Those are silicone. Those are not fabric lace. These are so fun. Now these, I believe, were sent to me by a friend. Thank you very much. I decided to play with them. So I'll share with you my tips and what I learned along the way, and I want to do a heart. The silicone, it's filling in all the big holes, which is okay. What happens is the silicone goes through the lace and spreads out over your silicone mat. You do want to be on silicone, even if you're using a non-stick surface like maybe you could use a Teflon oven liner. That would probably work as well. But if you're using something that's paper-based, like even wax paper, it could still stick to it and tear and then be stuck to the back. For tools, I'm using my little pokey tool. And you can see this one has been really loved. And I'm using a silicone spatula from Nuvo. And this is how I am spreading my resin. I'm also using this, which is my UV light. It is hard on a larger project to use the handheld light. They work, but you really have to be faithful in getting good coverage. This one, I have put some of that press and seal over it because my gloves or hands tend to be all goopy when I'm using it. Okay, and I know that they have a new one of these now that you can get two of them, and then the feet connect, so it'll do the top and the bottom of your piece all at once. So that would be really fun. So I'm going to resin these, and while they're curing, I'm going to talk to you about and show you some other projects that I tried and my big fail, because let's face it, you've got to fail or you're not even trying, right? Okay. Now, when you're done, all you have to do to clean up is use some of the isopropyl alcohol on a rag and clean up your tools and your silicone. So I'm going to pull this out. Make sure you do keep your resin in the dark box and in a dark area. What I'm doing is just spreading it on with this. Now, again, it's going to seep out and go onto the silicone mat. It's okay, because what we're going to do is, whoops, that's way too much. So let's put that here. What we're going to do is just trim off the excess when we're done. So a good pair of pointy scissors would be great. So what I'm doing is I'm pushing it down into the holes, trying to get all the way, and you've got plenty of time to work because it's not going to harden. until you use that UV light. So take your time, get it down into those holes. So that is the first thing I noticed. The error that I made before was one of my holes here is not completely filled in, but it's okay because I can still go back and fill it in later. Now, I have seen people use a brush to spread their UV resin. So then you have UV resin on the brush. And I know that the alcohol will help clean that up, but I'm not sure if I want to get my brushes in alcohol. Well, you know, I thought I had too much. I was wrong again. Sometimes I pour it onto the spatula, sometimes I drip it directly onto my project. Could you color this? Yes, you could. Be careful with using a lot of glitter. The difference between UV resin and your regular resin is that the light source needs to get touch an area in order for it to cure. So for instance, if this was wet and I put a rhinestone down onto it, the only way to cure the bottom would be to flip it over and do a light source on the bottom, and that is okay too. Speaking of light source, you know your sun, the sun will also cure your project, but you just have to be very patient, lay it in the sun, direct sunlight, and then you have to not touch the project. Okay, so we are good, and I can tell right now a mistake that I have made is that I should have put these closer together because they need to be under that light. I'm going to bring this over. Yeah, it'll work. So all I need to do is push the 180 seconds, but I don't want that glare or that light to be in my eyes, so I'm putting that there. And just alcohol on a little rag, just so that the UV doesn't cure these. But even if the UV light cured it, you could still scrape it off of your silicone mat. Okay, so what I had thought was, what about one of these, which is I got this pack of these fall leaves, you know, they're kind of glittery, floppy things. So I did the UV resin on that, and I love the way that turned out. I thought that was so cool because I love how glossy that is, and it does make it thicker. Now, because this says that it is high flexibility, it is, but it's more rubbery to touch than you're going to find. Let's take these off. It's more rubbery to touch than a regular UV resin, which would be hard and slick, but it's not a problem at all. I didn't do the back, but look at the difference in those. Very fun. So I could have also, once cured, I could have done another coat and cured that as well. That, I really liked how that turned out. Imagine doing a wreath with those. The next thing I thought about was this, which is this ribbon, and it's all man-made materials. So I laid that out, and I realized I had to do both sides. This did not turn out as well because it got really thick in places, and when it peeled up off the silicone, it left chunks behind. And I've come to realize that here's my mistake with this. I spread the resin over it with this, but in some areas, it really saturated deeply into this mesh, but in other areas, it just stayed over the top. So it has more of a bubble effect to it, which I didn't really care for how that turned out. So what my advice to you, so you can do as I say and not as I do, is to make sure you are really pushing that resin down into that mesh, work it in there, and make sure you got an even coat by applying pressure instead of just gently spreading it. Yeah, by the time that I had done the UV light on it, it was too late because it had already put that strong coat on. So when you do 180 seconds, it does 60 seconds 3 times, so that's 3 minutes. Because this seeped through to the other side, even though it's clear, I still want to turn this over and give this another go on that side. Now, one thing I've noticed too is that sometimes, not every time, but sometimes it actually stays sticky, not just rubbery, but sticky, to where you feel like, oh, this really can't possibly be cured fully. And from what I understand, it has to do with the oxidative process. It's easy to fix by dipping your project into a bowl of water and then laying the UV resin light over it and doing it again for another 3 minutes. And what that does, it finally enables it to harden the rest of the way. And I haven't had any problems since I learned that technique. As far as embellishment, to apply rhinestones, I've been using gem tack over the surface of my resin. But these flowers that you see right here, these are specifically sold for resining. But I think usually the long cure resin, but that's what these are. So what I was trying to do was not use the super thick flowers because I wasn't sure I could get a good light source under there. I've just been using the little translucent petals on there. And so you can see that I have a little pink one there and a transparent blue, and I don't even know what it's like stamen. So I did those. I put UV resin down, laid them in the UV resin, and then I did the light. Then I coated the top of them, did the light again, flipped them over, and lit the back as well. So they are good. Now, these again are very soft and flexible, but I don't think they'll tear because they do have the resin on them. This dream is one of those word beads that I got in a big pack from a craft store years ago. The other thing that I'm using on mine, I have these flat back rhinestone pieces. I actually have those in my shop. And I also have these flat back pearls, which look really cute. Here you can see them right there, and the body of the butterfly. So very, very cute. And just think of what you can lay on here. You can add bits of lace. You can do the whole mixed media and build these images up. I think you'll love them. And you saw that the little pendant there, I was able to punch a hole and put an eyelet in there as well. Here's another thought I would like to try, and that's to go ahead and resin some fabric and see if it would die cut really well, because who knows? That's a time for another video. Okay, so that is done. And those are good. So all we need to do is take some pointy scissors and clean that up a little bit. There we have it. Those are so pretty. How would you use these? And just think about layering them and making something like that. Now, glitter. So you can add glitter as you're resining. You just have to make sure you don't do such an occlusive glitter, especially a really dark glitter, that this light can't get through, because it still wouldn't be able to reach all the areas through the back because of the lattice work itself. I just went on Amazon and looked for flat back pearls, and then, you know, bought things like this in the past. So let's look at, oh my gosh, you know, this almost needs something right in the center there. Oh, this is annoying. Sorry about that. So these are fun. These are actually stickers that I don't even know where I got these from. But they are fabric, really thick fabric. Now, it does have adhesive, and I am not one to put adhesive on adhesive. But if it's a really, really weak adhesive, sometimes I do. I have to be very careful about that. So let's lay that down. And if you love the difference in textures, you could just leave this as it is. Or if you want this to be glossy as well, you can go ahead and add the resin and put the light on it. Only don't go under this leaf. The light cannot get under there unless you pin these back and resin those leaves, and then petals, and then lay these back down. That would work as well. But I just think that is so cute. Now here's an example of these lacy flowers that you could also take out and put on there. This is too large for what I have. I could trim back some of the layers. It would be easier, again, to do this if I had a brush instead of what I'm using. So we're going to have to switch to a brush. Okay, now I am going to have to get out my silicone mat again. This is actually a junky eyeshadow brush that I picked up at a thrift store. And so then I'm not going to feel bad if it doesn't come clean with the alcohol. I do have a brush cleaner and I can definitely try that. I think these layers are very translucent and they will respond well to the light on the UV without worrying about, without worrying about the light not getting through. Another thing we could do is just pour some on here like a palette, and then I can dab it. This little pink ruffle is actually sticking to a mesh background, and that's what I'm trying to adhere. Now, if you were using the regular resin and not this flexible, you would have more of a crunchy flower when you were done. I'm going to use my light source off camera this time. Okay, I think it turned out marvelous. So here we go. It actually is pretty firm. I love the feeling of that. And I did 3 minutes here and I flipped it. Actually, I did 4 minutes here and I flipped it over and did 2 minutes on the back. It is fine. It is not sticky at all. It's wonderful. And you could still put the pearls around there if you wanted. So for my brush, I did put a little alcohol on a paper towel and I just went over and squeezed it into the paper towel. And then I used the Bristle Magic, which is a great brush cleaner and conditioner. So I rubbed that into, it's like a gel, and I rubbed it into the bristles really well, let it set for a few minutes, and then rinsed it out with warm water, not hot. And it feels really good. And so I think we're going to be good. And I will probably be using brushes instead of my spatula from now on. Thank you for coming along and creating with me. This has been so much fun. Look under this video and I will give you information. Hopefully I can find the video on how I made these silicone pieces here. But you can use this technique on other soft materials as well.